Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to Season 2 Part 2 of What If Deku Was in 1B. Just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat, so we begin. Bakugo stood at the top of the celebration podium, covered in bandages and burns but with the most egotistical smirk on his face. He had kept his word. The ruby-eyed blonde had won the competition by giving it his all and now stood at the top as he looked to his left to see Izuku. The freckled boy carried matching burns that reflected their fight as well as a broken arm that a scolding recovery girl fixed for not holding back. This was how Katsuki Bakugo wanted to win. Shizaki claimed third after defeating Yaoyorozu in a side match. And after Izuku took second, Bakugo took his gold with a menacing grin on the camera. You see that? I'm at the top. This is your future number one. The crowds cheered for the blonde as Izuku stood there smiling. It was a fierce fight, a match between two boys who wanted to be the winner from an outsider's perspective. But to Izuku and Bakugo, it was their first proper conversation, even if it was without words. They had sorted nothing out verbally. And the chasm between the two was still as deep as a bottomless trench, but that fight was a step toward the right direction. It solidified where they were and Izuku's confidence ran another adrenaline rush. With determination glowing in his forest green eyes, he turned to Bakugo with challenge in his voice. Then I'll just go higher than you. So I'll be number one. Bakugo turned to look down at Deku from the taller podium. Huh, what's that supposed to mean? I just said I'm at the top. All Might stood before the two, a little confused at their short exchange. He wasn't sure how to make of it, but the number one shook the feeling off before turning to thank everyone who came to watch. More than a week had passed since then, and it was a typical morning for 1B. The homeroom was filled with Izuku muttering as Takage recalled fights in accurate detail. The broken arm wasn't permitted to write yet, so Monoma was in charge of collecting the information. Vlad walked in as usual except today, with a remote. Okay kids, it's time for the time step of your life as heroes. The pros were watching you, and many gave in their recruitments. Names appeared on the backboard accompanied by a number. We have internships for everyone even if you don't have an offer because Shizaki had over 3,000, an impressive number like Takage who received just over 2,000 offers. However, the gap between the class and the two was evident as Komori, the third highest, had 360 offers. The homeroom teacher quickly dispelled the slight tension, however, as he announced the next part. And before you intern, you will be choosing your code names. In other words, hero names. A collective cheer signaled the beginning of a hectic day as the class chose their hero names. With Midnight's help, names were bounced around, bringing everyone closer as a class. Although most code names were unsurprising, the class were a little nervous to say the least over a certain short freckled boy. The Greenette had chosen Deku to be his hero name, although Monoma still held his grudge. The class ended up supporting his choice. That was because when Izuku first saw his name Deku differently, it had been the day he took his first step as a hero. The forest hair bounced as his decision was made, and Deku, the hero in training, was sure he made the correct choice. Talking about correct choices, Izuku stared at 120 offers and wondered who to intern with. Some, like Awase, were surprised when they saw the Greenette receive so few despite being in second place. But Izuku knew why. After all, he was a student with a power that physically broke his body each time unless it was a 5% smash. Even then, he could only use controlled percentages under complete focus. Monoma had tried to help. The periwinkle blonde copied the quirk, but One for All was a power-storing quirk with something he never experienced, with only advice on how to reduce pain. Monoma left for lunch with Takage because All Might had suddenly appeared. Spread the pressure rather than letting it build up. I should try that out during my internship. Izuku sat down with his mentor and found out that he had received a particular offer. His confusion on why a single offer would be important became fear as the number one hero started to shake at the knees. And after a discussion on the mysterious offer, the freckled boy wanted to take the opportunity. By the time he ran to join the others, Izuku Midoriya's internship would be with All Might's older mentor, Gran Torino. Have you guys decided? Awase asked as he ate together with the others. Monoma nodded and explained how he would be with someone to increase his physical abilities and patience to be rational under circumstances that annoyed him. Awase and Shizaki both hadn't decided yet, and Takage waved Izuku over to their table. Where are you going, Deku? She asked as he sat down. And Izuku explained about Gran Torino. It seemed that even Monoma hadn't heard of the hero, and Izuku estimated he was from 2 hero generations ago. So he's an old man? Takage asked and smiled, letting her toothy grin shine playfully. Izuku laughed, his tense shoulders relaxing. Toshinori had unconsciously placed anxiety onto his successor when he displayed visual fear. It caused the greenette to be unintentionally uptight, but with a single cheeky grin. The lizard girl dispelled his nerves and Izuku smiled. Are you going to the agency who recommended you? Actually, I'll be in Hasu, where the crime rate is highest. It took the group by surprise as Monoma wanted to question her. What? Where are you going to? I was originally planning on interning with the one who recommended me, but Takage interrupted Monoma as she stopped and glanced at Izuku. After that fight with Bakugo, well, I really underestimated him. She leaned back on her chair with a sigh. With my basically invulnerable quirk, because I can regenerate and fly, I ended up assuming Bakugo didn't have the strength to carry on fighting full throttle. I ended up being a little big-headed. You know, recommendation student. Good quirk. Media attention because of the USJ. The large eyes blinked as she let out an awkward chuckle. Looking over her past actions, Takage had to come to terms that she was developing a flaw and listed the main reasons for her confidence, and because of that, I've underestimated others. I decided that I was stronger and lost as a result. Twice actually, because I made the same mistake against Shizaki. Izuku nodded, remembering how they had underestimated the Vine Girl and paid the price by losing the match. Even if I didn't underestimate him though, I realized that stamina wasn't on my side. I wanted to end the match quickly. But why did you do something so reckless so late in the game? Monoma still didn't understand how someone rational could act so out of character. And the large eyes blinked slowly again. She then lowered her head slightly as she spoke. Well, I had planned to pull back and think of a way to chip at his strength until he falls, but Bakugo put me into a bigger disadvantage than I thought when he started throwing the rocks at me. With no chance of taking a step back to recollect her thoughts, Takage had gone for an impromptu plan and tried to pull Bakugo out of bounds. That's why I wanted to work in Hasu instead of the mountains where I originally planned. I can have practice assessing people and learn not to underestimate them. Plus, the agency I signed up for will increase my physical strength. I'm still struggling with this whole agency thing. The waist shrugged, and the students let out warm chuckles. Yes. While you do that, I'm going to get stronger. She pumped an arm proudly which caught Tetsu's eye from across the table. The silver boy smiled before copying Takage and they flexed on each other a little more, causing gentle laughter all around as the dinosaur lover sat back down. She grinned at her friends. It was times like this that made her confidence soar. These moments were the ones that motivated her to improve even her weakest points, so her perspective wouldn't narrow. The points in time where everything was peaceful, Izuku could feel that he was calm, no anxiety building up within him. And he exhaled slowly, letting a childlike grin adorn his freckled face. It was slow, but the progress was evident as the boy's confidence was becoming unshakable. He heartwarmingly laughed with his friends before secretly thanking Takage as the one who helped boost his morale the most. The week flew by, before anyone knew it. Students were already heading to the station with their hero outfits in hand. Takage insisted they called each other by their hero names to get used to the sound so as they reached the source of trains and busy people. Deku and Lizardy waved off Phantom Thief, who was heading in the opposite direction, and after reaching the point where they parted, Lizardy smiled. Good luck, Deku. With a wave, Izuku grinned, showing his teeth slightly as he saw Takage off. You too, Lizardy. Emerald eyes shone as they darted around the street, honing in on the target as they drew closer to the given location, hands slightly nervous but mostly excited. The sound of a door creaking open signaled one thing in the greenette's mind: my next step to being a hero. Walking in, the jade orbs widened as they landed on an elderly man lying in a crimson-red pool. He's dead. Before panic could gloss over the sight, the forest gems noticed something odd. The vermilion liquid was much too bright. Doubt and confusion clouded the questioning spheres as they inched closer. Are you? I'm alive. Gran Torino casually lifted his head, and Izuku sighed as the old hero picked himself up. He was shaking as he held onto his cane, and with a hand raised to his ear, Gran Torino leaned over. Who are you again? Deku, sir. The response was immediate, and Izuku realized his mistake since the greenette forgot he wasn't still playing code with Takage anymore. Wait. No, my actual name is Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. The petite man in front of him only seemed half pleased as he smiled and turned around. His shaky legs headed toward the kitchen and Izuku didn't know how to react. Although, the emerald eyes traced the yellow hero suit the retired man wore and decided to stay. But even with his fist clenched and mind ready, the greenette was not prepared for Gran Torino to jump from wall to wall at breakneck speeds. Red lightning burned through the veins as an almost automatic response as the two started to clash. Fighting a hopeless battle is what their match felt like until Monoma's words rang an idea. One for all flowed at the low 5%, but not only his hand. The red lightning spread up his whole arm and all the way up to his shoulder as Izuku slid underneath the sofa. Gran Torino assumed the Freckles boy was hiding and kicked it aside, only for a discharge of wind to be thrown in his direction. The old hero dodged it, however, before jumping behind and slammed the student face first into the floor. The fight was over, taking his foot off Izuku's back. The hero sighed at an observation. You know what you're doing, but you're also ignoring the whole picture. Your admiration of All Might is a shackle. Izuku got up, mind racing because there was barely any strain in his fingers at all. Monoma was right in telling him to spread the power over a larger surface area as the freckled boy's legs scrambled after the elderly hero. What do you mean? Emerald Orbs wanted an answer, but instead, the old man just smiled at him. Who are you again? Wanting to facepalm mentally. A strained smile plastered onto his face as Gran Torino disappeared outside. My admiration. A shackle. The jade orbs flickered around the footprints that were left as a mark of their battle. And Izuku became acutely aware of how inflexible he was during the match. Flexible. My movements are stiff. The quirk. Images of his fight with Bakugo flashed through Izuku's mind, and he wondered how Bakugo could move with such ease, even through the air. It was definitely more manageable when I followed what Monoma said and spread the power to my whole arm instead of just my finger. But his eyes widened at the sudden realization of a possibility he hadn't thought of. Gran Torino, who was outside the door, smiled to himself as he saw Izuku finally make headway on how to use one for all across Japan. The students were at their internships and learning new skills. They watched a pro in action up close. Monoma improved his patience and decision-making skills. Awase learned how to use his weld in more diverse scenarios. Tetsu had gone to the same intern as Kirishima from 1A, and the two boys were excited to work under the chivalrous hero. Fourth kind, Takach walked down the street with the hero she decided to intern with, and she listened attentively to the lecture about how to observe people. Everyone was learning and not letting a single second go to waste. And Izuku was rushing ahead as quickly as he could. In the end, he just tested me. It was the first night of the internship, and Izuku had not gone to sleep. Instead, the greenette stood in Gran Torino's kitchen as the old hero fell asleep. The flexible mind was spinning an idea, and he planned to try it now. If I can use my power at 5%, like breathing, I should be able to move as Kaken did. Clenching his fists and closing his eyes, Izuku knew what he had to do. Instead of just spreading all for one in just my legs, red lightning streaks ran up Izuku's legs, traveling up his thighs and arms before the flow of power reached his face. Power circulated every cell of Izuku's body at the low 5%. But the greenette was already struggling even to move. Gritting his teeth, a smile appeared on Izuku's face as the red lightning faded away. Instead, a pale green discharge of lightning-like power started to dance around the greenette's skin. The old hero wore a broad smile despite not facing the excited student and knew that their next spar would be different. He was right. The following day, as the sound of a cane dropping to the floor echoed out, Gran Torino was already bouncing from one side of the room to the other within an instant. Green orbs didn't hesitate to try out his new discovery as red lightning instantly ran across his whole body. The pale green discharge crackled loudly as every sense in his body became acutely aware of his surroundings. The old hero smiled as he noticed the jade eyes flickering after his movements and let out a chuckle. Jumping up slightly, the charged student swiped an arm as he barreled in the hero's direction. The wind pressure of that mere movement was easily dodged, but the light cans that stood neatly on the shelf behind toppled to the ground. You missed, kid. Gran Torino aimed another attack from behind, but instead of making the same mistake, Izuku waited the last second to jump out of the way, crashing upward into the air above. The greenette used his elbows to launch himself from the ceiling. A smash was ready to make contact when the jade spheres widened. An unforeseen kick had dug into his unprotected stomach and Izuku landed with a thud to the floor. Gran Torino grinned as the hero was highly impressed at the speed Izuku absorbed and used information. It was very promising for a hero in training, and the old mentor secretly praised his first student. Despite the good progress on the retiree's side, Toshinori only received terrible news. The hero met with the police detective, and the two had discussed the test results of the Namu All Might took down, with the detective explaining that the Namu were 4 humans genetically modified into one beast. The truth of the matter shook the blonde. Has that man started to move again? The barrel of bad news only kept rolling as, within Hasu, a vigilante had also started to make his move. However, he wasn't alone, although he rejected the offer to join the League of Villains. Their meeting had not gone unnoticed as they stood together for a moment before parting ways. Shigaraki was annoyed and called Stain a hero breeder before ordering Kurogiri. Bring the Nomus. Izuku crash-landed back first into the wall again with a heavy thud as Gran Torino let out a huff. The freckled boy was making him move more than he expected. The reasoning was because Emerald Eyes would analyze every fight before quickly adapting and changing the student's attack pattern. One for All was now like a switch, and the power would flow to every cell of the entire body. This breakthrough, full cowling, allowed the Greenette to fight and move more easily, combined with both strength and mind. Izuku's tactics against Gran Torino were becoming more and more effective, but before too much time passed, the hero knew the successor would develop habits. Let's move to Phase 2. They arrived in Hasu City in the late afternoon. Gran Torino had initially planned to arrive at night, but Izuku's progress had been more than expected. They started to patrol, and apart from a shoplift, the hero in training's first patrol was relatively peaceful. Help! A woman cried out as someone robbed her purse, and Gran Torino patted his intern's back before sprinting off in a split second. Forest spheres followed the mentor, who took down the thief immediately and returned the bag before signaling the Greenette over. The speed was truly amazing, and the jade orbs shined before the two turned the criminal in. Deku. Izuku turned to see Takage waving at him. Her hero suit's sapphire scales shone against the setting sun as the lizard girl ran up to him. T-Lizardy. Lips smiled as the freckled boy quickly corrected himself. Her hero name rolled off his tongue, and the hero in training herself returned the gesture with her own toothy grin. They chuckled as the hero Takage in turn with greeted Gran Torino. I've been given permission to use my quirk for scouting, Takage announced proudly. She wanted to show off her progress, and the old hero had an idea. The two were both given permission to use their quirks and told to partner up. The next disturbance is yours. They still had to be under an adult's supervision, but the two students were excited as the cobalt scales started to fly around. Don't you have a harder time controlling the smaller pieces? Izuku asked, and Takage grinned. I can now. I've been practicing all over Hasu for the past 3 days. Impressed at the control. The inner fanboy started to chatter excitedly, and they started to gossip when the flying torso quietened and gave instructions, with a confirmation nod to Gran Torino, who looked over at the scene. The two Greenettes sprang to action. 120 meters to your right. Drunk man harassing someone. Pale green lightning flashed across the emerald suit, surprising Takage as the boy ran off. In an instant, Izuku arrived and saw the drunk man yelling at an advertising lady. With haste, the freckled boy grabbed the flailing arms and held them tight behind the man's back, thanking the two students as she ran off. The lady went to write her statement as Gran Torino took the man to the police for public assault. Boom! Immediately on high alert, the heroes saw a building explode over in the distance. Even from where they stood, Izuku could see the smoke and flames. Kids, stand down. Help the civilians, Gran Torino ordered. But his mentee panicked when green orbs recognized a feature. Namu, acknowledging the situation. Gran Torino grit his teeth before he and the other hero ran full force toward the problem. I'll search for anyone who needs immediate help, Takage informed. Her voice tense as she split into her maximum and sent her body down every nook and cranny of the streets. The other followed her direct instruction and imitating Gran Torino's movements. Izuku sprang into action. 3 o'clock. There's a girl, nodding and sprinting over, lighting discharging from the freckled boy's body as he handed the girl to a police officer. Next, the navigator was about to pinpoint the next target when a wild screech rang out. The two Greenettes turned to see a thin, sickly green Namu aim its monstrous arm at some civilians. One for all, full cowling. Running forward, Izuku ran to the inhuman creature and clenched a fist. Smash! It took the hit, and unlike the Namu from the USJ, it went flying across the street. Takage used her navy scales to guide the civilians to a safe spot as the Namu got up, but before the student could jump forward for another attack, a jet of flames engulfed the creature and Izuku clenched a fist. It was painful to hear the creature howl to its death. It's you, turning to see Endeavor. They both confirmed their temporary permit to use their quirks in the emergency situation. The flame hero nodded before telling them to follow police instructions to evacuate the panicking people. Behind the garbage truck, 8 o'clock, jumping into the air, Izuku ran into the back street and carried the hiding boy and brought him to safety. The freckled cheeks were tense, but he followed Takage's lead. They were going to quickly take care of everyone in their immediate vicinity. Smile, Takage yelled at the other Greenette, and he hadn't even realized he wasn't. With a nod, a smile plastered onto the determined boy's face as he listened for the next move. There's a woman stuck. 2 o'clock. Jade orbs turned slightly to the right and locked on a woman trapped under rubble. Running over and quickly lifting the scrap, the student smiled reassuringly. It's going to be okay. Picking her up, Izuku ran back to the police before joining the mass of ultramarine scales who were collecting themselves into a body as Lizardy reset her timer for her quirk. That's everyone nearby. We should move, see if there's anyone else in other places. The two followed the police and arrived to help other heroes. Sapphire Scales and Emerald Lighting immediately fired out as they were ready to save more lives. However, Takage suddenly changed in demeanor, and Izuku turned to see a hint of fear in her eyes. There's a fight in the alley at 6 o'clock. Understood. But as Izuku ran ahead, the girl collected herself. Wait, Deku. Words fell onto deaf ears as his priority was to save people. The other desperately ran after him but skidded to a halt as the freckled boy came to a stop. The reason was to stare upon a figure, a scarf as red as blood and a body covered in blades. Both greenettes recognized the infamous figure as he had been in the news. Oh no, Takage whimpered out slightly as they lay eyes on the hero killer. Standing above the dead body of Tenya Ida from 1A. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We The Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer for this video, as well as the editor for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video. Thank you all for watching. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals. Have a fantastic day.